Just past noon in Pine Hollow, Vermont, a quiet town where maple leaves whisper secrets, Sarah Coleman walked into Maple Haven Café. One email changed everything. Pine Rest is poisoning us. They're stealing our lives. A former federal prosecutor turned journalist, Sarah came to unearth the truth about a care home hiding dark deeds, abuse, theft, and a police chief pulling strings to keep it buried. Will justice prevail in a town blinded by loyalty? Hit like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes to find out how one woman's courage shakes a community to its core. Stay tuned. This is a story you won't forget. The air in Pine Hollow carried a chill, even in the soft September light. Maple Haven Café sat at the heart of town, its windows fogged with warmth, the hum of quiet chatter blending with the clink of coffee cups. Regulars, mostly gray-haired locals, nursed their routines at worn tables. Then she walked in, a black woman, mid-40s, sharp blazer over a simple blouse, no badge, just a leather notebook tucked under one arm. Sarah Coleman took a corner seat, ordered a black coffee, and opened her notebook. Pages rustled softly. Names, dates, numbers, the kind of notes that don't belong in plain sight unless you want eyes on you. She didn't flinch under the stares. She wasn't here to hide. Sarah wasn't a stranger to small towns or their suspicions. She'd seen it before, eyes narrowing, whispers rising, the weight of being the outsider. But Pine Hollow was different. That email, anonymous but desperate, had brought her here. They're drugging us, it said. They're taking our money. Pine Rest, the town's pride, a care home for the elderly, was a facade. Behind its polished walls, residents were silenced with sedatives, their savings drained through forged signatures. And someone powerful was keeping it quiet. Sarah's pen moved steadily, jotting down a name. Richard Hale, police chief and the care home's hidden owner. She sipped her coffee, eyes scanning the room. The locals didn't know her, but she knew them, their routines, their trust in Hale, their fear of change. A waitress lingered too long, glancing at Sarah's notebook. An old man muttered, "She doesn't belong here." Sarah didn't look up. She learned long ago that truth doesn't shout, it waits. But she wasn't expecting him. Officer Mark Reynolds, mid-30s, third-generation cop, stepped in after a routine call. He needed coffee. Instead, he saw her, alone, writing, a black woman who didn't fit the town's rhythm. His hand rested on his duty belt. Trouble, his gut told him. What secrets does Pine Rest hide? Who's protecting the abusers? And can one woman's truth break a town's silence? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Should care homes be watched or trusted? If this story moves you, like, share, and hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps these stories alive on Black Echoes. Let's uncover the truth together. The hum of Maple Haven Café settled into its familiar rhythm. The clink of cups and low murmurs wrapping Pine Hollow in a fragile calm. Sarah Coleman sat in her corner, her leather notebook open, pen scratching softly as she traced the threads of scandal that clung to the town like damp fog. She'd come for Pine Rest, the care home where residents were drugged into silence. Their savings siphoned through forged papers. The name at the center, Richard Hale, police chief, the man who owned the home through shadows and shell companies. Sarah's coffee grew cold as she worked, her face steady, unyielding, even as eyes darted her way. Across the room, the door swung open, a faint jingle cutting through the chatter. Officer Mark Reynolds stepped in, his boots heavy on the wood floor, badge catching the neon glow. 35, born and raised in Pine Hollow. He carried the weight of his father's and grandfather's uniforms. A routine call about a noisy kid had brought him here, but now his gaze locked on Sarah. A black woman, alone, riding with purpose. It didn't fit. He adjusted his duty belt, instincts prickling. Trouble, he thought. Mark approached, his voice polite but edged. "Ma'am, you waiting for someone?" Sarah didn't look up, her pen pausing briefly. "Just having coffee," she said, calm as still water. His eyes flicked to her notebook, catching a glimpse of a faded Justice Department seal on a document. Suspicion tightened his jaw. Folks don't usually write like that unless they're up to something, he said, leaning closer. Sarah met his gaze, unflinching. I'm up to drinking coffee. The room hushed, locals watching, an old man nodding Mark's way, as if to say, keep an eye on her. Mark's hand hovered near his radio. Unit 4, possible suspicious person at Maple Haven. Need backup to check ID. His voice carried the weight of routine, but his eyes stayed on Sarah, searching for a crack. She closed her notebook slowly, deliberately. You making a call based on a hunch, officer? That's a mistake. The air grew thick, the rain outside tapping harder against the windows. A waitress froze mid-step, and a couple whispered, she looks out of place. Mark's lips twitched. It's my job to notice. What's she writing? Why is she here? And what does Pine Hollow hide behind its quiet charm? Drop your thoughts below. When does caution become prejudice? If this story grips you, like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps the truth alive. Sarah Coleman sat steady in Maple Haven Café, the weight of Pine Hollow's stairs pressing against her. Her leather notebook lay open, its pages a map of secrets, Pine Rest's abuses, residents drugged into compliance, their savings stolen through forged signatures, all shielded by Richard Hale, the police chief who owned the care home through a hidden web of shell companies. The rain drummed outside, a restless rhythm matching the town's unease. Sarah's pen moved with purpose, her face calm, betraying nothing. She'd faced rooms like this before, small towns, guarded glances, the unspoken code to keep outsiders at bay. But she wasn't here to blend in. Officer Mark Reynolds stood over her, his duty belt creaking faintly, his radio crackling with static after his call for backup. His eyes, sharp with suspicion, lingered on the faded Justice Department seal in her notebook. You're not just having coffee, he said, voice low, probing. Sarah set her pen down, meeting his gaze with a quiet steel. I'm doing my job, officer. Same as you think you're doing. Her words were measured, cutting through the hum of the cafe like a blade through fog. Mark leaned closer, undeterred. Folks come through here, stirring trouble, claiming there's someone they're not. I've seen it. Reporters, activists, all with agendas. His tone carried the town's pride, its distrust of strangers. Sarah's lips curved slightly. Not a smile, but a challenge. You see what you're trained to see. She reached into her blazer, slow and deliberate, pulling out a slim card holder. The room held its breath as she flipped it open, revealing a press badge with a faint federal seal beneath her name. Sarah Coleman, former federal prosecutor. Now I dig for truth independently. Mark's eyes widened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. The cafe's chatter stilled, forks pausing midair, locals straining to hear. I'm here for Pine Rest, Sarah continued, her voice steady, unyielding. And your police chief, Richard Hale. He's not who you think. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading through the room. An old man muttered, she's trouble. A woman nearby whispered, Hale's one of us. Mark's jaw tightened, his hand still near his radio. You're saying you're investigating our chief? Sarah closed her card holder, laying it flat on the table. I'm saying I have evidence, drugging residents, stealing their money, and Hale's name on every cover-up. The air grew heavier, the rain's patter now a distant echo. Mark opened his mouth, then stopped, his certainty cracking. You're making a big mistake, lady, he said, but his voice wavered. Sarah didn't blink. No, officer. You just called backup on the woman here to expose your boss. What's Hale hiding? Can one outsider unravel a town's loyalty? And when does trust become betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments. When should we question those in power? If this story moves you, like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these truths alive. Pine Hollow, Vermont, lay quiet under crimson maples, but a rot festered beneath its charm. Maple Haven Café buzzed with routine, yet Sarah Coleman saw past the facade. Her notebook held the truth about Pine Rest, a care home where elderly residents were drugged and robbed. Richard Hale, police chief and secret owner, pulled the strings, his influence deep as the town's roots. Sarah's pen traced his name, her resolve firm despite locals' wary glances. She wasn't here to please them. She was here to break their silence. Pine Rest was no haven. Widows and veterans paid thousands for care, only to be sedated with illegal benzodiazepines, their voices dulled, their savings vanished, siphoned through forged contracts to Hale's shell company. He used his badge to bury complaints. A daughter's plea about her father's missing inheritance dismissed as dementia. A nurse who spoke up was fired, her warnings ignored. Sarah, guided by her prosecutor's instincts, had spent 6 months gathering proof. A nurse's whispered confession about unlabeled pills, a son's bank records showing stolen savings. Footage of residents too drugged to speak. Hale's community fund was the key, a front praised at town halls, meant for police radios, but really a pipeline to his pockets. He paid officers bonuses, buying loyalty, silencing doubts. To Pine Hollow, Hale was a hero, his handshake warm, his name on plaques. But Sarah saw the cost. A widow's ignored cries, a veteran's stolen life. She sipped her coffee, eyes scanning the cafe's suspicious faces. They didn't know the storm she carried. What's the cost of blind trust? When does loyalty hide betrayal? Share your thoughts below. When should we question those we admire? Like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps the truth alive. The air in Maple Haven Café grew thick. The murmur of Pine Hollow's locals now a tense hum, their eyes darting between Sarah Coleman and the door. Sarah sat steady, her leather notebook closed, the weight of her evidence. Pine Rest's abuses. Sedatives forced on residents, their savings stolen through forged papers, burning in her mind. Richard Hale, police chief and secret owner of the care home, had buried it all, his badge a shield for his crimes. Sarah's coffee sat untouched, her calm a quiet defiance against the town's suspicion. She'd faced men like Hale before, men who thought power made them untouchable. She knew better. The door's bell jangled sharply, cutting through the cafe's hush. Richard Hale stepped in, his broad frame filling the doorway, his police chief's badge glinting under the neon glow. 60, with a jaw carved from years of authority, he carried Pine Hollow's trust like a crown. Who's digging into my business? His voice was low, laced with scorn, eyes locking on Sarah. The room froze, forks stilled, whispers died. An old man nodded Hale's way, as if to say, "Handle her." Sarah stood, unhurried, her blazer crisp, and slid a federal subpoena across the table. The papers rustle loud in the silence. "I'm Sarah Coleman," she said, voice even, cutting like glass. "This is for you, Chief Hale. Evidence of illegal sedatives at Pine Rest. Forged contracts stealing resident savings, and your shell company profiting from it all." Hale's eyes narrowed, scanning the document, his laugh short and cruel. "You think a piece of paper scares me in my town?" He stepped closer, towering over her, his presence a practiced intimidation. "Pine Rest keeps this town alive. You're stirring trouble where it's not wanted." A woman nearby muttered, "Hale's done right by us." Sarah didn't flinch. "You've done right by your bank account," she said, her words precise. Unyielding, residents drugged into silence, their homes sold off, your community fund a front for your profits. "I have bank records, witness statements, and camera footage you thought was erased." The cafe's air tightened, locals shifting uncomfortably. Hale's smirk faded, his hand twitching near his belt. "You're out of your depth, lady," he growled. Sarah held his gaze. "No, Chief. You're out of time. Who protects the protectors? Can a town's hero be its villain? And what happens when the truth demand a reckoning?" Share your thoughts in the comments. When should we challenge those in power? If this story moves you, like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these truths alive. Maple Haven Café simmered with tension. Pine Hollow's locals caught between Sarah Coleman's calm resolve and Richard Hale's defiance. Sarah's evidence, Pine Rest sedatives, stolen savings. A federal subpoena had shaken the police chief's facade. The rain outside beat harder, echoing the room's unease. Sarah opened her notebook, pulling a grainy photo. Mrs. Eleanor Grant, slumped, sedated after questioning her missing pension. Pine Rest's cameras caught everything, Sarah said, voice steady. No consent, just control, to silence anyone who fought back. The cafe hushed. Locals' eyes wide, some skeptical, others shaken. A gray-haired man spoke up, voice gruff. Those cameras keep old folks safe. They wander, they fall. Murmurs of agreement rose. Loyalty to Hale lingering. Sarah's gaze locked on him. Mrs. Grant wasn't wandering. She was fighting for her life. Hale used those cameras to hide his theft, not protect anyone. She held up a bank transfer, stamped with Hale's shell company logo. A woman's voice cracked. My dad's at Pine Rest. He's not himself. The room split. Whispers of doubt clashing with cries of, Hale's one of us. Hale's face hardened, his voice a growl. You're slandering me in my town. Sarah didn't flinch. I'm giving them their voices back. The cafe buzzed, torn between trust and truth. What's the line between safety and control? When does protection become betrayal? Share your thoughts below. Do cameras in care homes help or harm? Like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these stories alive. The air in Maple Haven Cafe crackled. Pine Hollow's locals frozen in a haze of doubt and disbelief. Sarah Coleman stood unwavering, her leather notebook a silent weapon, its pages spilling the truth about Pine Rest. Residents drugged with illegal sedatives. Their savings stolen through forged contracts, all under the shadow of Richard Hale, the police chief and secret owner of the care home. Her subpoena and evidence had stripped Hale's facade, exposing his shell company and the community fund that masked his theft. The rain outside pounded the windows, a restless pulse matching the town's unraveling trust. Sarah's calm, a quiet fire, held the room captive. Hale's face twisted, his voice a low snarl. You think you can walk into my town and tear it apart? But before Sarah could answer, the cafe door swung open, its bell drowned by heavy boots. 3 federal marshals stepped in, their badges glinting under the neon glow, faces hard with purpose. The lead marshal, a tall man with a clipped voice, spoke. Richard Hale, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, embezzlement, and civil rights violations. The room gasped, forks clattering, phones raised to record. Hale's hand twitched toward his belt, but a marshal's sharp glare stopped him cold. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady, cutting through the chaos. Your cameras recorded everything, Hale. Residents drugged, their pleas ignored, their money funneled to your accounts. We have the footage, the bank records, the witnesses you threatened. She held up a sealed warrant, its weight heavier than the cuffs, now snapping around Hale's wrists. The cafe erupted. Some locals shouted, Hale's one of us, while others, faces pale, whispered about loved ones at Pine Rest. An old man yelled, He kept us safe. Sarah turned to him, her eyes firm but kind. He preyed on the vulnerable. That's not safety. Hale struggled, his voice a desperate roar. This town needs me. But the marshals moved swiftly, pinning him to the floor, his badge now a hollow symbol. The click of cuffs echoed, sharp and final. A woman in the crowd, tears in her eyes, clutched her phone. Filming. Another muttered, My mom's at Pine Rest. Is this true? Sarah didn't gloat. She stood still, her work done. The storm outside raged, but inside, a heavier truth settled. What happens when a hero falls? Can justice heal a broken town? And who pays the price for silence? Share your thoughts below. When does loyalty blind us to truth? If this story moves you, share and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these stories alive. The storm over Pine Hollow raged on, its rain lashing Maple Haven Cafe as the echoes of Richard Hale's arrest faded. The locals sat stunned, their phones still raised, capturing the moment federal marshals dragged their police chief away, his badge tarnished by Sarah Coleman's evidence. Pine Rest abuses. Residents drugged, their savings stolen, all hidden by Hale's corrupt grip. The cafe's neon glow flickered, casting shadows on faces torn between loyalty and doubt. Sarah, her leather notebook tucked away, stood quietly, her calm a stark contrast to the chaos. She'd exposed Hale, but the real work was just beginning. The town's wounds needed truth to heal. At the police station, Officer Mark Reynolds sat alone in a dim conference room, his uniform heavy, his hands clenched. The door creaked open, and Sarah stepped in, her presence steady, not accusing. She slid a file across the table, its pages stark with reports Mark had signed, complaint from Pine Rest families he dismissed as exaggerated. His eyes flicked to the file, then away, shame creeping in. "You ignored their pleas," Sarah said, her voice low, not cruel. "Mrs. Eleanor Grant begged for help. You called it dementia." Mark's jaw tightened, his voice barely audible. "I thought I was protecting the town." Hale said those complaints were troublemakers. Sarah leaned against the wall, her gaze unwavering. "Hale used you to silence them. You didn't know the whole story, but you chose not to look." She played a recording, grainy but clear. Eleanor's voice, frail, pleading, "They're taking my money." A thud, then silence. Mark's breath caught, his hands trembling. "I didn't know," he whispered, the words breaking. Sarah's tone softened, but her words cut deep. "You didn't report it." That made it easier for Hale to keep drugging, stealing, controlling. Mark looked down, his badge of weight he no longer trusted. "What do you want from me?" he asked, voice raw. "The truth," Sarah said, "not to save yourself, but to break the system that let this happen. You were inside it. You can help stop it." The room's silence was heavy, broken only by the distant rain. Mark nodded, slow, hesitant but certain. For the first time, he saw the cost of his silence. Can one man's regret undo a town's mistakes? What does it take to face your own role in injustice? And how do we rebuild trust when it's broken? Share your thoughts below. When should we question our own actions? If this story moves you, like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these truths alive. Pine Hollow's quiet streets buzzed with unrest. The rain now a steady drizzle as news of Richard Hale's arrest spread like wildfire. Maple Haven Café, once a haven of routine, was now a stage where Sarah Coleman's truth had shattered the town's faith. Her evidence, Pine Rest sedatives, stolen savings, and hidden cameras, had toppled Hale, the police chief who'd preyed on the vulnerable while hiding behind his badge. The air carried whispers of shock and division, locals grappling with a hero unmasked as a villain. Sarah's work had cracked the town open, but the pieces were far from settled. Outside Pine Rest, news vans lined the road, their lights piercing the dusk. Townsfolk gathered, some clutching photos of loved ones in the care home, others defending Hale's legacy. An elderly man faced a camera, voice firm. "Hale kept us safe. Those cameras were for protection." A younger woman, eyes red, countered, "My dad's in there, drug out of his mind. That's not safety." The crowd split, loyalty clashing with betrayal. Sarah walked past, her blazer damp, her notebook tucked away. She didn't stop for interviews, her silence louder than the chaos. In the town square, posters praised Hale's community fund, now exposed as a front for his theft. A grandmother, voice trembling, told a reporter, "I trusted Pine Rest with my sister. They took her savings." Another local scoffed, "This outsider's stirring trouble. We don't need her kind here." The division ran deep, Pine Hollow's heart torn between clinging to the past and facing its shame. Sarah's truth had forced a mirror on the town, and not everyone liked what they saw. She headed for the bus station, her steps steady, her work done, but the town forever changed. Whispers followed. Some called her a hero, others a meddler. The rain fell softer now, as if the storm had exhaled. What does justice cost a community? When do we stop defending the familiar and start demanding the truth? Share your thoughts below. Is loyalty worth protecting if it hides harm? Like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these stories alive. The rain over Pine Hollow softened to a whisper, the town's crimson maples glowing faintly in the fading light of dusk. Sarah Coleman stood at the bus station, her leather notebook tucked under her arm, the weight of her work, exposing Pine Rest's abuses, the sedatives, the stolen savings, and Richard Hale's corrupt reign. settling into quiet resolve. The police chief's arrest had fractured the town, leaving its people to wrestle with their shattered trust. Some called her a savior, others a disruptor, but Sarah didn't linger for their judgment. Her fight was never for applause. It was for those silenced by Hale's greed. She boarded the bus, the hum of its engine blending with the distant murmur of Pine Hollow's reckoning. Opening her notebook, she wrote, "Case closed. But dignity is everyone's right." The town she left behind was no longer the same. Families demanded answers about loved ones in Pine Rest. Whispers of reform replaced blind loyalty. The truth, sharp and unyielding, had carved a path for change. Sarah's pen paused, her gaze distant. Justice wasn't a headline or a badge. It was the chance for people to live without fear, to be heard when they spoke. Pine Hollow would heal, but slowly. The scars of Hale's betrayal ran deep. Yet voices once stifled now rose. A daughter questioned her mother's care. A son demanded his father's savings back. The town's silence was breaking, and that was enough. Sarah's work lived in those moments, not in the spotlight. What does it mean to stand for the vulnerable? How do we rebuild when trust crumbles? And who carries the torch when the fight feels lonely? Share your thoughts below. When should we speak up for those who can't? Like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes. Your support keeps these stories alive.